Introduction: The Power of Discipline by Daniel Walter. In the introduction to The Power of Discipline, Daniel Walter lays the foundation by highlighting one fundamental point. Self-discipline is the determinant of success regardless of your background, ability, or situation. While most people hang on to motivation, he maintains that motivation is temporary, but discipline is stable and sustainable. Walter starts off by pointing out the legend of overnight success. He states that what appears to be sudden success is really the payoff of persistent, disciplined work over a period of time. Behind each success story is a person who decided to do the hard things when it was inconvenient or not even enjoyable. Whether it is creating a business, getting in shape, or writing a book, the determining factor is not usually talent, it's having the discipline to continue with the process. The author also identifies a significant issue faced by many: the lack of ability to delay gratification. With instant gratification all around us, social media, fast food, entertainment, many find it difficult to make decisions that are more beneficial in the long run but more difficult in the short run. Walter introduces the concept of impulse control as a foundational element of discipline, suggesting that your ability to say no to immediate pleasure often determines your ability to achieve long-term goals. Walter explains that discipline isn't a trait you're born with, it's a skill that can be trained like a muscle. This means anyone can develop it through intentional practice. He uses relatable examples and stories to show how disciplined people structure their lives, make daily decisions, and overcome distractions and excuses. He summarizes the introduction by assuring that the book will give the reader practical tools and psychological knowledge to make them more disciplined. These tools are derived from neuroscience, behavioral psychology, and effective real-world approaches. His aim is to enable the reader to take charge of their time, concentration, emotions, and actions in a manner that brings sustained achievement. Chapter 1: The Hidden Power of Self-Discipline. In the opening chapter, Daniel Walter examines what self-discipline really is and why it is so important for personal and professional success. He disputes the popular myth that talent, genius, or luck are the key drivers of becoming great. Rather, he contends that self-discipline is the actual driver of long-term success. Walter introduces the concept that discipline is doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like doing it. He uses examples from high achievers in various fields, such as athletes, entrepreneurs, and writers, to show that consistency and control over one's actions matter more than inspiration or motivation. The chapter also briefly addresses the myth of willpower as a limited commodity. Walter describes that while short-term depletion of willpower is possible, it also can be trained and developed as a muscle is developed. This chapter lays the groundwork for the rest of the book by emphasizing that discipline can be learned and not an innate thing. Chapter 2: The Biology of Self-Discipline. Chapter 2 gets into the psychology and neuroscience of self-discipline. Walter describes how the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain that controls decision-making and impulse, has a big role to play in controlling our behavior. He compares this to the limbic system, which controls our impulses, emotions, and desires. Walter introduces the idea that our brain is often at war with itself. One part wants long-term success, while the other seeks short-term pleasure. For example, while one part of us wants to wake up early and work out, another part craves comfort and sleep. Discipline, he explains, is the ability to quiet the impulsive brain and let the logical, goal-focused brain take control. He also writes about dopamine, the brain reward and pleasure chemical. Instant gratification, such as scrolling on social media or binge-viewing TV shows, creates continuous spurts of dopamine in today's digital age, and this makes it more difficult for individuals to remain committed to delayed rewards. The more we submit to the distractions, the more challenging it gets to ignore them later on. The most important thing to learn from this chapter is that knowing how the brain works can assist us in developing habits and surroundings that foster self-discipline. Walter advises that being in control of dopamine exposure and conditioning impulse control are necessary actions for becoming more disciplined. Chapter 3: Delayed gratification, the greatest indicator of success. This chapter is about the most well-known idea in self-discipline, delayed gratification. Walter starts off with a mention of the Stanford marshmallow experiment, in which kids were offered either to eat one marshmallow now or wait and get two. The outcome was that the kids who had waited went on to succeed more in life, both academically and socially. Walter applies this test to make an important point: the capacity for delayed gratification, even when an immediate smaller one is offered, is one of the best indicators of future success. This he connects to contemporary adult life: to resist the urge to fritter away time on social media, to indulge in junk food, or to waste time on procrastination and instead work toward long-term objectives. He also describes how most people are stuck in a cycle of short-term gratification, which disempowers them from achieving their intentions. Escaping this cycle takes not merely willpower, but planning. Walter presents strategies like visualization of long-term rewards, application of friction between you and your temptations, making the penalty of surrendering more immediate. He urges readers to change their attitude from, "What do I want now?" to, "What do I want most?" This attitude adjustment forms the basis of discipline. If we can identify and link our short-term behavior to our long-term identity and desired objectives, it becomes simpler to resist impulse and persevere. Chapter 4: The Pain of Discipline versus the Pain of Regret. In Chapter 3, Daniel Walter presents a compelling notion: discipline hurts, but regret hurts more. He describes that being self-disciplined can be painful in the short run: early mornings, homework, saying no to temptations, but the emotional price of inaction, lost opportunities, lost time, lost objectives, is much higher and lingers indefinitely. Walter presents a simple but deep decision: you either suffer the pain of discipline now, or the pain of regret later. He provides everyday examples of individuals who shunned short-term inconvenience and received long-term disillusionment, like poor health, failed relationships, or unsuccessful careers. He also talks about the way in which recent comforts and distractions enable individuals to sidestep short-term suffering, which often leads them to forego hard but significant deeds. One of the most important statements Walter makes is that discipline is the source of freedom. For example, the discipline of handling money results in money freedom. The discipline of eating well results in long-term wellness. It's a paradox. By accepting structure and work today, you gain more options, energy, and success tomorrow. He concludes the chapter with an appeal to readers to redefine how they approach discomfort. Rather than running from it, we must view it as a sign that growth is occurring. Chapter 5: The Enemy of Discipline, Instant Gratification. This chapter delves deeper into the issue of instant gratification and its contribution to undermining discipline. According to Walter, we are living in an era of continuous temptation: food delivery, e-commerce, entertainment, and social media that are all programmed to deliver us with easy doses of pleasure with minimum effort. He says our brains are hardwired for instant gratification because, evolutionarily, it assisted us in survival. But nowadays, that wiring can be our downfall. Our natural pleasure seeking has been hijacked by corporations that benefit from our distraction and consumption. Walter explains how each time we succumb to instant gratification, we reinforce a habit loop that makes it more difficult to resist the next time. Whether it's constantly checking your phone or repeatedly hitting snooze, these small behaviors build up and create patterns that wear away at discipline. He also explains ways of overcoming instant gratification, including making bad habits less convenient, e.g., deleting apps or triggers; waiting to respond, e.g., holding back for 10 minutes before following an impulse; providing delayed gratification with positive reinforcement. The message here is unmistakable: the longer we wait for immediate gratification, the more our self-discipline grows. Through making a conscious decision to go for what we most desire rather than settling for what we want immediately, we slowly gain mastery of our life. Chapter 6: The Discipline of Focus. Walter covers one of the largest enemies of self-discipline, which is lack of focus, in this chapter. He claims that we live in an age of record distraction. There are notifications, emails, messages, and ongoing digital static that are consuming our concentration capacity, allowing us to be unable to remain disciplined on our most critical work. He points out that discipline takes concentration. You cannot adhere to a plan or a goal if your attention is continually being diverted. Walter points out how effective people are usually masters of concentration, rather than effort. They understand how to eliminate distractions and cultivate settings conducive to focusing. Key tips presented in this chapter are: time blocking, reserving dedicated time for intense work free from disruptions; removing distractions, silencing notifications, making a distraction-free environment; the one thing rule, simply asking, what's the one thing I can do today that will make everything else easier or unnecessary. Walter also speaks about the mental exhaustion resulting from multitasking and calls readers to become single-taskers instead. By concentrating completely on one thing at a time, you increase the quality of your work and build the discipline muscle. He ends by reminding everyone that concentration is a choice each and every day to manage your attention and focus it on what's important. Chapter 7: The Power of Habit Loops. In Chapter 7, Daniel Walter explores the machinery of habit formation and how discipline is inextricably linked to habits we create over time. He introduces the habit loop, which has three main elements. 1. Cue, the stimulus that causes the behavior. 2. Routine, the actual action or behavior. 3. Reward, the pleasure or reward obtained through the behavior. Walter emphasizes that habits run automatically once they are formed, which is both dangerous and empowering. If we form bad habits, like checking our phones constantly or procrastinating, they become automatic behaviors that are hard to break. But if we build good habits, like waking up early or exercising, those also become automatic and support long-term discipline. He also explains how to hack the habit loop by identifying and controlling your cues, replacing bad routines with healthier ones, attaching meaningful rewards to positive behaviors. Walter encourages readers to focus on consistency over intensity. A small, disciplined action repeated daily is more powerful than occasional bursts of effort. The idea is to build routines that eventually require less willpower because they run on autopilot. Chapter 8: The Myth of Motivation. This chapter addresses a common myth, the myth that motivation is required to get things done or be disciplined. Walter contends that becoming dependent on motivation is untrustworthy because it varies with mood, energy, and external situations. Procrastination and inconsistency are the usual results of waiting to feel like it. Instead, Walter encourages the notion that motivation comes from action, not the reverse. When you start doing something, even if you're not motivated, you create a head of steam. That head of steam creates motivation to continue. This is a behavioral psychology concept. It's usually harder to get started than to keep going once you've begun. He provides practical techniques to get out of the motivation trap, including 2-minute rule. Begin with only 2 minutes of the task to overcome inertia. Commitment devices. Instruments or systems that trap you into a behavior, e.g., accountability partners, pre-scheduling commitments. Environment design. Designing your environment so that disciplined behavior is more convenient and distractions are more inconvenient. Walter stresses that disciplined individuals aren't always more motivated, they are just more effective at taking action despite how they feel. Chapter 9: Discipline and Decision Fatigue. In Chapter 9, Walter explores the psychological concept of decision fatigue, the mental exhaustion that comes from making too many decisions. He explains that every decision, no matter how small, depletes our cognitive energy. By the end of the day, we're often too drained to make wise or disciplined choices. This is the reason why top performers, such as Steve Jobs or Barack Obama, reduced minor choices, such as dressing, so that they could channel their energies into what truly matters. Walter emphasizes that self-discipline isn't a matter of having unlimited willpower, but rather by saving it through eliminating unnecessary choices. Key methods to minimize decision fatigue are: forming habits. Set schedules for activities such as meals, exercise, or morning routines. Planning in advance. Getting breakfast, outfits, or to-do lists ready in advance. Prioritizing significant decisions at the beginning of the day when your willpower is greatest. Walter also speaks to the importance of automation, making important tasks automatic habits so that you don't have to keep deciding to do or not to do them. This saves mental energy and aids long-term discipline. Chapter 10: The Marshmallow Test and the Science of Delayed Gratification. In this chapter, Daniel Walter explains one of the most renowned psychology experiments on self-control, the marshmallow test, first carried out by psychologist Walter Mischel at Stanford University. In the experiment, young children were offered a choice: eat one marshmallow immediately or wait 15 minutes and receive 2 marshmallows. The research indicated that individuals who were able to wait, i.e., could delay gratification, did better in life. They achieved higher levels of academic achievement, enjoyed improved health, and enjoyed more solid social skills. Walter applies this research to demonstrate the long-term worth of self-control, and discipline is really all about deferring short-term indulgence for long-term reward. He points out delayed gratification is trainable. Techniques include distraction strategies. Those who were successful tended to distract themselves in order not to think about the marshmallow. Reframing mentally, perceiving the immediate reward as less desirable or linking the delay to something worthwhile. Walter also relates this to everyday situations: saving money rather than spending it now, healthy eating now for future fitness, studying rather than TV for future career achievement. The takeaway: those who learn to defer gratification in a consistent way make better life choices and are more highly rewarded in the long term. Chapter 11: Environment is Stronger Than Willpower. In this chapter, Walter examines the importance of environment in determining our behavior and aiding, or undermining, our self-discipline. He claims that discipline isn't merely a matter of inner strength, it's also about creating a world around you that facilitates success and makes temptation harder. Key concepts explored. You are a product of your environment. Everything from the food in your fridge to the apps on your phone is always affecting your decisions. Willpower is limited, so don't keep depending on it. Rather, make disciplined behavior convenient by changing your environment. Techniques Walter presents include ironing out distractions, e.g., deleting social media apps, putting your phone in another room. Adding friction to bad habits, e.g., locking junk food away, unsubscribing from shopping emails. Creating cues for good habits, e.g., placing your gym clothes near your bed to encourage morning workouts. He draws on examples from high-performing individuals who curate their environments for productivity, such as writers who eliminate all digital access while working or athletes who build routines that minimize temptation. The main point of the chapter: don't count on willpower, make your environment supportive of your goals. Chapter 12: The Power of Self-Image in Discipline. In Chapter 12, Walter explores the connection between identity and behavior and believes that how we perceive ourselves determines how disciplined we are. If you perceive yourself as lazy, unmotivated, or inconsistent, you're going to be acting in ways that reinforce that identity. But if you create a strong sense of self, as someone who is committed, intense, and disciplined, your behavior will start to get in line with that identity. This is similar to the concept given in James Clear's Atomic Habits that change works best when it is identity-driven. Instead of telling yourself, "I want to read more," you tell yourself, "I am a reader." Instead of, "I want to eat better," you tell yourself, "I am a healthy person." Walter provides techniques to craft your identity. Affirmations and self-talk. Repeating strong, affirming things about yourself. Evidence stacking. Accumulating small wins, e.g., doing a habit daily, that prove a disciplined identity. Behavior first, identity follows. Small disciplined behaviors suffice to alter the way you perceive yourself. He states that each act of discipline is a vote towards the kind of person you desire to be. If your identity is consistent with your desired outcomes, discipline feels automatic and sustainable. Chapter 13. The Role of Pain in Personal Growth. In this chapter, Daniel Walter presents the concept that pain is not the enemy of discipline but a necessary friend. He posits that pain, physical, emotional, or psychological, is usually a sign of growth. Most people attempt to escape pain at all costs, but Walter contends that they deny themselves a chance to develop resilience and self-discipline. Key concepts discussed. Pain is a teacher. Rather than avoiding pain, we should lean into it and ask, what is this trying to teach me? Voluntary discomfort. Intentionally subjecting ourselves to situations that are difficult, e.g., cold showers, intense workouts, tough conversations, trains our minds to better deal with adversity. Resilience training. By experiencing controlled levels of stress and difficulty, we develop mental toughness, the foundation of solid discipline. Walter draws on historical personalities and world-class athletes who employed pain as a training ground, rather than one to be shunned. He invites people to redefine pain from something adverse to something productive. The big idea of the chapter: discipline is forged in discomfort. Instead of pursuing comfort, pursue managed challenges in order to toughen your will and character. Chapter 14. Emotional Discipline, Mastering Your Inner World. This chapter turns to the idea of emotional self-discipline, which Walter asserts is equally important as controlling outside actions. Emotional discipline, he describes, is knowing how to stay calm, concentrated, and deliberate even when your feelings are intense or overwhelming. Major points addressed are: emotions aren't facts, they're temporary emotions, not mandates. Because you feel fatigued, angry, or frightened doesn't mean you need to act on them. Don't react, respond. Discipline involves waiting between stimulus and response so you can select your response rather than acting on impulse. Self-awareness. Emotional control is based on understanding your triggers and habits. Walter recommends journaling, meditation, and breathing exercises as awareness-building tools. Walter points out the ways emotional discipline promotes more positive relationships, career choices, and general well-being. If you are not able to handle your emotions, you can't possibly handle your life. He presents a useful method known as the stop, breathe, decide technique, which creates space between emotional response and rational decision. 1. Stop and recognize your emotion. 2. Breathe a few times to soothe your nervous system. 3. Choose an action that is consistent with your values, not your transient emotions. The chapter reiterates that emotional maturity is an essential element of enduring discipline. Chapter 15. Finding Purpose, the Fuel Behind Discipline. The last chapter in this section discusses purpose as the motivation for long-term discipline. Walter believes that if individuals have a strong why, it is easier to be consistent with hard tasks and habits. Discipline is drudgery without the purpose. With purpose, discipline is meaningful effort. Major points from this chapter. Purpose gives direction. When you know where you are headed and why it is important, even drudgery or unpleasant work becomes part of something larger. Burnout results from discipline without purpose. Slogging away for the sheer sake of it is not sustainable. You require an emotionally engaging why to remain disciplined. Clarifying your values. Walter asks readers to look at their values, what they really care about, and connect those values with their goals and habits. He presents a couple of useful exercises. Creating a personal mission statement. Having you ask yourself the 5 whys to drill deeper into why you do what you do. Having you make a vision board or journal to keep your long-term goals in mind. Walter wraps the chapter by reminding readers that purpose doesn't need to be big or universal. It can be quiet and personal, like being a better parent, gaining mastery of your time, or enjoying personal peace. The point is that you have to care intensely about it. Chapter 16. The Compound Effect of Discipline. Daniel Walter starts this chapter by reaffirming one of the most significant concepts in the book, that tiny, regular activities create enormous long-term outcomes. He takes his cue from the notion of the compound effect, which Darren Hardy made famous and James Clear briefly mentioned in Atomic Habits. Main ideas include: small, daily disciplines are more important than massive, single-shot decisions. When improving your health, wealth, relationships, or your mindset, you make incremental progress. Small gains add up. An improvement of just 1% each day compounds a huge difference in the weeks, months, and years. The early stages appear to be going slowly, but exponentially, the outcomes intensify. Walter refers to this as the invisible phase, where effort is being put in, but nothing is yet being seen, a time when most people quit. He invites readers to be patient and concentrate on execution, not outcome. Discipline is about reporting to duty even when the payoff is not instant. In time, disciplined behavior becomes habit, and breakthroughs occur overnight seemingly. Key message: great changes are founded on tiny habits done habitually over time. Chapter 17. Surround yourself with discipline. In this chapter, Walter highlights the importance of your social circle and environment in supporting or sabotaging your discipline. He reinforces a central idea from earlier chapters: you become like the people you spend the most time with. Important points. Discipline is contagious. If you spend time with self-motivated, focused individuals, you're more likely to adopt similar behaviors. Peer pressure is not just for teenagers. Adults are equally vulnerable, if not more so, to accommodating their social group's expectations. Select your group with care. Walter advises taking an inventory of your relationships: who inspires you, who derails or discourages you. He also talks about mastermind groups, accountability partnerships, or like-minded communities. Locating mentors or models who possess the degree of discipline you want to achieve. Steering clear of toxic influences, individuals who ridicule your efforts, support your poor habits, or pull you away from your objectives. Lesson: discipline thrives in good company. Create a social circle that encourages your best. Chapter 18. Discipline is freedom. In the last chapter, Walter refutes the general fallacy that discipline constrains. In fact, he contends, discipline is the very definition of freedom. Though it will initially feel like a drag, regular discipline sets you free from chaos, regret, dependency, and mediocrity. Key takeaways. Discipline allows you to master your actions, feelings, and life path. It releases you from outside conditions. You're not a victim of your situation or impulses. When you're disciplined, you get to intentionally select your path, making choices instead of being washed away by distractions or emotional desires. With these closing words, Walter leaves you with an empowering message: discipline provides a framework wherein your highest life is lived. It allows you to realize your potential, accomplish what you set out to do, and create a life full of purpose and meaning. He challenges readers to see discipline as a gift, rather than punishment. Celebrate the freedom it gives, the freedom to say no, to concentrate, to develop, and to live on purpose. Overall themes of all chapters. Chapter 1. The myth of motivation. Motivation is inconsistent and unreliable. Discipline guarantees action no matter the mood. Counting on motivation yields uneven effort. Chapter 2. The science of self-control. Self-control is a trainable and buildable skill. The brain employs willpower as a muscle. It grows weary but can expand. Developing discipline involves progressive resistance to temptations. Chapter 3. The discipline distraction dilemma. Distractions kill concentration and destroy momentum. Discipline demands closing off or eliminating environmental and digital distractions. Manage your attention to take control over your actions. Chapter 4. The truth about habits. Habits are the foundation of discipline. Smaller habits, practiced consistently, form your character. To build good habits and break bad ones is crucial to disciplined living. Chapter 5. The role of accountability. Self-discipline is reinforced by accountability partners and systems. Answerability escalates follow-through. External pressure enhances internal discipline. Chapter 6. The power of delayed gratification. The ability to delay pleasure in favor of long-term rewards is a precursor to success. Delayed gratification is a sign of maturity and inner strength. Condition your brain to wait and work for greater rewards. Chapter 7. Discipline and decision-making. Excellent discipline yields better, quicker decisions. Eliminating decision fatigue by automating routines serves to conserve willpower. Simplifying life improves clarity and focus. Chapter 8. Morning discipline and routines. The morning determines the tone of the day. A planned morning routine gains momentum and discipline. Disciplined mornings tend to translate into productive days. Chapter 9. The consistency discipline. Arrival every day is more valuable than intensity. Consistency builds exponentially over time. Disciplined people do what they are supposed to do even when they don't want to. Chapter 10. Emotional control and discipline. Emotional control is a type of discipline. Responding out of emotion derails decision-making and productivity. Thoughtful, controlled reactions are permitted by emotional discipline. Chapter 11. Self-discipline in health and fitness. Mental discipline is boosted by physical discipline. Sleep, exercise, and diet need order and willpower. Healthy habits yield confidence and self-mastery. Chapter 12. Financial discipline. Saving, budgeting, and frugal spending yield financial success. Delayed gratification and impulse control are vital to building wealth. Financial discipline demonstrates long-term thinking. Chapter 13. The role of pain in personal growth. Discomfort is a necessity for growth and change. Voluntary challenges such as exercise or fasting create resilience. Discipline is often shaped by adversity. Chapter 14. Emotional discipline. Emotions are cues, not orders. Responding rather than reacting indicates inner control. Emotional discipline facilitates clear thinking and improved relationships. Chapter 15. Finding purpose. Purpose gives emotional fuel for discipline. Clear goals that fit values make discipline easy to maintain. A solid why brings ongoing effort. Chapter 16. The compound effect of discipline. Small steps repeated lead to large results. Discipline gains exponentially over time. Trust the process even when outcomes aren't immediate. Chapter 17. Surround yourself with discipline. Your social environment and social group affect you. Surrounding yourself with disciplined individuals encourages good habits. Eliminate negative influences that undermine progress. Chapter 18. Discipline is freedom. Discipline becomes real freedom, not limitation. Self-mastery generates options, confidence, and autonomy. A disciplined life is a purposeful, empowered life. Conclusion. Within the conclusion of the power of discipline, Daniel Walter weaves together the most important lessons and reiterates his main point: self-discipline is the key to personal achievement and accomplishment. As opposed to being a hereditary quality that a select few happen to be born with, discipline is presented as an acquired and honed ability that anyone can master. Key takeaways from the conclusion. 1. Discipline is the master key. Walter points out that self-discipline is the master key to unlocking success in all aspects of life, be it health, finances, relationships, education, or emotional equilibrium. He contends that talent, intelligence, or luck may provide transitory benefits, but it is habitual discipline that brings about lasting outcomes. 2. Freedom through discipline. In contrast to the popular myth that discipline is limiting, Walter again argues that discipline is really a path to more freedom. A disciplined individual is not a slave to impulse, procrastination, or mood swings. They get to choose their actions consciously, live deliberately, and create a life on their own terms. 3. No magic formula, just repetition. There is no secret hack or shortcut to self-discipline. It is constructed one decision at a time, one habit at a time, by repeated effort. Walter asserts that consistency beats intensity and small daily improvements add up over time. 4. You are in control. The last message is a message of empowerment. Regardless of your habits, upbringing, and current level of motivation, you can change. By assuming responsibility for what you do and creating the discipline to act on it, you can alter your future and become the person you want to be. 5. Start today. Walter ends the book by asking us to act. Don't hold out for perfect timing or perfect circumstances. Start now, incrementally, and remain persistent. Every single disciplined decision brings you closer to where you want to go and shapes your character in the process. Last thought. Discipline is doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like doing it. This quote sums up the book. Practice, awareness, and persistence turn self-discipline into a way of life, and the route to your best self.